Hello, everybody. My name's Zach. My channel, Zach the Archer, on YouTube. I'm here with Christian from the Players Counsel, and we are going to be reviewing some of the new set cards from the virtual set on GEMP, the Pelennor Fields. So I'm really excited to get to preview a few of these cards and comment on some of the gameplay mechanics, some of the lore, the pictures, and just enjoy reviewing these here. So
Right on. Yeah, we're excited to get this released. We've been working on this for a little more than a year now, and of course, there's some ideas that have been percolating for a very long time. And in particular, one of the things that we're excited about is that we are really setting out for the first time to make brand new mechanics and add brand new stuff to the game that has never been there before. So yeah, let's dig right into it. So V3 is a fairly large set at 130 cards, large for a fan set. It is larger than many Decipher expansion sets at 122 cards. And there will also be 40 errata that will be coming along with it. Many of those associated with the hinder mechanic, which we'll be going over here soon. And here on the screen, you can kind of see the breakdown of what the sort of things that we're focusing on. As this is a Return of the King focused set, just like V1 and V2 were set on, they were mostly focused on Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers, and so this is kind of bringing up the rear and saying, okay, let's look at those ideas and concepts from Return of the King. So we've got a big focus on Raider and Gondor and Ring Wraith because, of course, that's all the kinds of stuff that's the big battles and things that are happening just outside Minas Tirith, with a focus that changes proportional to the focus that we have in Return of the King, as far as the characters and the themes and so on. You can also see a breakdown of the different strategies and stuff that we have here. One of the things that we want to do is try to make sure that we are focusing on old stuff and trying to bring old stuff back, like from Fellowship of the Ring. So we have a bunch of pipeweed here, but then we're also looking at some of the concepts that fit with Return of the King specifically. So
yeah, I'm really interested in the beacons. I'm not sure if we'll get to see those in the video today, but if not, I'll be excited to watch and get to preview those. I think whatever that entails is a very interesting concept and something that was definitely missing from the original Decipher King block. So I'm excited for that one in particular.
So I don't have those ones here because they are kind of a set that comes together. And so
Okay.
since we were just doing kind of a bunch of individual card spoilers, I don't have them. But I don't know. Maybe if we have time, we can I can shift plans, shift gears, and then pull a couple of
Sounds
those
good.
out. So first, we're just going to do a brief overview of the mechanics themselves, so that you can understand kind of the the context of these cards. So first, there are two different mechanics listed here, which are a little bit on the smaller end as far as complexity goes. Both of these are kind of just an expansion of existing concepts that are in the game. So Relentless is really just a codification of an existing mechanic that was on the Witch King's Beast, which is to say that minions that are relentless, which have the keyword relentless, will participate in one additional round of skirmishes after Fierce. So you have that third round.
Sure.
And so there's going to be cards that apply relentless, just like there are cards that apply fierce. And then the other mechanic here is the 2-dot and 3-dot uniqueness. So as of right now, if you have 1 dot, you can only have 1 copy in play, and if there are no dots, then you can have 4 copies in play. So we're just adding a few more notches along that spectrum, where you can now have a card that is restricted to just 2 cards in play or just 3 cards in play. For the most part, this is really just a balance lever for us to be able to utilize on errata, because plenty of times we find ourselves designing cards and discovering that there is something that's just a little bit too weak with 1 copy, but a little bit too strong with 4 copies. And so we want to be able to have that lever to be able to put cards exactly where they go. But V2 is going to be, V3 is going to be playing around with the idea of 2 copies of some things. And so, like, for instance, we have this Savage Fury here. One of the few Isengard cards that is in this set. But so this is a 2-dot card, a condition that goes to your support area. And it says, each time your Isengard minion wins a skirmish, you may discard another Savage Fury to hinder each free people's card on a companion it was skirmishing, and we'll get to hinder here in a moment. But so the idea here is that you have an effect that, and in the second ability, that operates on its own, but for you to really unlock its potential, you have to have that second copy in play for you to sacrifice, and so that kind of gives you a bit of a cadence that is a little bit different from a lot of the condition setups that we've had before. And then the more basic ability here, the maneuver action at the bottom: discard a minion to make your Isengard minion fierce or relentless until the regroup phase. So you can sacrifice your own guys, use them to either make them fierce, or if they're already fierce, you can use them to make them relentless. And so you can get that third level. Get alerts really nice and big to be chewing up companions.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. I think it's definitely a good add to the gameplay, kind of expanding the shadow phase and giving some more life to those stronger minions that are going to be more difficult to take down, not typically killed by the average fellowship. Yeah, I think this is a cool thing. Are you doing this mostly on conditions? Is that the theme I'm getting here?
We do have some other situations where you can have double dot. I don't know that we've had any possessions, but there are some minions that are double dot. Like in
Okay,
one of the other videos, we talked about the Kirathungal Watchers. There's exactly 2 of those, so that was a situation where it made sense to do the double dot. But
sure.
for the most part, though, it's really a balance concern. So
Yeah.
it's not really something that has especially been focused on, except for these paired cards like this one that are kind of playing around with the concept. I do like that you brought up, though, that it is something specifically to kind of like relentless, at least to boost up shadow, because that is one of the things that we were concerned about, is that there's been a big free people's slant to the game, almost, since it was made, where for the most part it's a fight between free peoples who can race really there to the end, and the shadows can sometimes be kind of a secondary concern, where yeah, maybe you get a stop, but you're not really necessarily going to get a shadow win if you really want to. So there's a lot of focus in this set to try and make things work for shadow more than they work for free peoples. And in fact, on that note, let's talk about hinder, because hinder is an asymmetric mechanic that does it give an advantage to shadow more than free peoples. So hinder is a brand new concept that is kind of intended to be a softer discard option. So when you hinder a card, you flip it face down. While it is face down, you cannot spot it, you cannot exert it, you cannot wound it, you cannot interact with it in almost any way. It ceases to be that card for the duration of it being face down. And then you have the opposite action. You have restore, where you take a card that's been flipped face down and you flip it back face up, and it's now back in play. You don't have to pay any costs or anything. It's just now resuming activity. And then the real thing that ties it all together is that we are altering the rules such that whenever you reconcile, you also automatically restore all of your hindered cards. And so what this means is that you end up with sort of a temporary disable that is different for the free peoples and the shadow side. So if a shadow card gets hindered, it's going to be hindered until the end of the regroup phase, when the shadow player reconciles and then all their cards come back. But if the free people's player has a card that gets hindered, that's effectively gone until the end of the turn, right? Because typically they cannot reconcile. Of course, there's Lembas Spread and a few other seldom used cards that I'm hoping may start to see additional play as people use that to hopefully use that as kind of a master spell. But for the most part, it will result in a cadence that is slanted in the direction of the shadow player. So we have an example card here, Strength of Men. It's a raider event, a response. If a raider minion wins a skirmish, hinder 2 free people's conditions or all free people's conditions if you can spot 5 burdens or 10 raider cards. So this is very similar to I forget the name of it, but there's another raider event that does something very similar, but it's discard 1 condition or like 3 conditions or something if you have a certain number of
Okay.
burdens. And so this is the same sort of concept, but with hinder, and allows itself to be a lot more expansive, because even though hinder even though this particular card hits a lot of cards, it's an enforced temporary measure. So we can kind of do these nukes a lot more freely without necessarily worrying about making things too poor for the Free People's player. Um, as opposed to like Sleep Cragers and stuff that do their big mass discards. Those are some cards that are actually going to be errated to utilize hinder instead of discard, for just that reason, because we feel like
Yeah,
some of those are just way too good at clearing everything out. So,
sure. Yeah,
so
very
sorry, go ahead.
very cool. Sorry, yeah, just yeah, very cool concept again. Um I think yeah, you kind of eliminate some of those triple move turns potentially with Radagast with some other effects, and so giving a little more of that strength to the shadow culture makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah. And so to hop back to Savage Fury, so we see each time your Isengard minion wins a skirmish, you may discard another Savage Fury to hinder each Free People's card on a companion it was skirmishing. So you can use this in this moments where you've got this big fierce guy that's up against a big tank, maybe like Durin or Aragorn that's got a bunch of their cards, and the Fury can smack all those cards down and make it so that this big tank character is now weaker. However, it's not a permanent you're not wiping the board state or anything. You're not setting them back to square one. All that stuff's going to be back next turn, but it's going to hurt in the meantime. And so that's kind of the goal that we're going for.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's just keep going. I've got I think 13 cards is the total, so we'll just keep on going down the list here. So how about you read this one off? So we got a version of Shelob, hopefully competing with Her Ladyship and others.
Yeah, so Shelob, Terror of Kirith Ungol, fierce enduring. Each time a skirmish involving Shelob ends, you may hinder each character she was skirmishing. Skirmish ability: if Gollum is skirmishing, exert Gollum and Shelob to hinder a character he is skirmishing.
So we got two different things going on here, both of them based around her paralyzing her opponents, right? So in some ways, this is kind of similar to Her Ladyship, who swoops in and stings somebody and makes it so that they can't skirmish anymore. But Terror of Kirith Ungol is going to be stinging whoever she's after every time she's in a skirmish, win or lose. Now, because it's a hinder, it's not going to be a permanent thing, of course, and the opponent may counter it if they have their own restore cards or whatnot. But she's going to be able to start, pecking through the entire fellowship if you let her. And then also, if Gollum here is on the table, he can distract whoever he's up against and kind of call Shelob over to knock them out, and also get an exertion on Shelob. So with the enduring, that can kind of pump her up.
Yeah, so
So
with this game text and the hinder ability, would the Free People's character choose a single card to be hindered if they had multiple possessions?
So in in this case, the character itself would get hindered, so that the companion would get
Oh,
flipped over, and
I
so
see.
when that companion is hindered, because they're kind of out of the game for the moment, you can't assign them if they're in a skirmish. That skirmish will get canceled.
Okay,
So it's definitely still removing them off the table very for a temporary time. But it can target characters, not just possessions and conditions and such.
gotcha. Yeah, very very cool. Yeah, this reminds me of something from the Return of the King film. I'm curious what you think about this, but it's always bugged me when Sheila stings Frodo that he's wearing the mithril coat. And
So that's something people bring up a lot. I think it's really just a bad angle in the shot, but where
yeah,
he actually gets hit is in the back of the neck. And you can kind of see him afterwards, like in the end, where he's kind of holding, like kind of rubbing that spot because it still hurts him, years later. But yeah, I think the way that they framed the shot, it made her look like she was hitting him right in the middle of the back, and that's not actually where he got hit. But
yeah, and I think I don't know if they meant to do this, but I feel like with his makeup when he's shirtless in the tower, it looks like he's got a big poke mark on his chest.
Mhm.
That's separate from his Nazgul wound in his shoulder. So, um, but yeah,
I, I
knowing
I'd have
the
to double check that because I hadn't thought about that.
yeah. something to look at. But yeah, I believe in the book, she got him in the neck,
Yeah.
or he wasn't wearing the coat at the time. But uh, yeah, great image on this card too. I certainly approve of that.
Yeah,
Very
it can be
very
hard
creepy.
sometimes to find some of these sorts of images because Decipher, especially in the case of CG characters like the Balrog, they kind of wrung all the various frames out of it already, and so it can take some work to to hunt through the film and try to find, are there any shots here that Decipher did not already use on another card. So this one, I was quite happy to find that particular one.
Yeah, looks great.
Thank you. Okay, so next, so on the breakdown in that first slide, we talked about the empowered Nazgul, and so this is a cycle of Nazgul that so we've got one of each Nazgul, all nine are represented, and the idea is we are looking at the Pelennor fields. When Sauron sends the Witch King in the books, he specifically empowered him, gave him a boost and a power up before he went to Minas Tirith, and it gave him enough power that he felt confident enough to challenge Gandalf, 1-to-1. Whereas earlier on in Fellowship of the Ring, he fled from Gandalf, even when he had three of his buddies with him, because he just didn't have enough firepower. And so we
Right.
took that idea and thought, okay, well, what? So if they're being given a power up, let's take a look at actually pushing the kind of the power envelope on these Nazgul. So you'll see up at the top that all of them have one more Twilight than normal, so they are more expensive. They also have +1 strength over their normal setup. Normally, Lamenya costs 4 and he's strength 9. And then all of them also have fierce, and then they've got game text that hopefully is just something thematic for a Nazgul captain to be having during this big fight. So this particular one, each character skirmishing this minion is strength -1 for each companion you can spot. Limit -3 unless you can spot another Nazgul. So Lamenya here can really, especially up against big fellowships, he can really be chewing through anybody that he gets assigned to. Um, Especially if you pair him up with multiple Nazgul. But yeah,
That could get very very strong very quickly.
it could, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
so that
thinking about the theme again, I think this is a really cool ad. With again, like you said, not really well explained in the movies, but during that attack on Pelennor in the films, you do get that sense that either the use of the fell beast or the Nazguls have been empowered in some way that no one can really face them, right? It's just
right,
running in terror essentially. Which is a very different feeling from, maybe Frodo had that after getting stabbed on Weathertop with his encounters in the Two Towers, with the fell beast flying over, but really the rest of the Fellowship, and even the other hobbits, you didn't really get that sense from in the films.
yeah, yeah. So that was definitely the feeling that we were going for. Was hoping to try and make them a little bit scarier, especially the smaller ones here. Normally, Lamenya's one that you're kind of like, okay, you sent me the weak one. I'm just going to knock him out here real quick. But now they might actually be a force to be reckoned with.
Couple good shots from Legolas would take care of him.
Yeah. Okay, Shadowfax. So Shadowfax is one that has been represented a few times by Decipher. In Movie Block, however, the versions of Shadowfax that existed made it very difficult to justify. All of them have the text that you cannot bear hand weapons, and in general, it just kind of made it a little bit, you know, made you question like why am I going through with this when I have other ways to power them up and that Shadowfax does not give me access to. So this one is very much trying to be a fighting Shadowfax. So while you can spot a Gandalf artifact, and that is kind of a sub theme with all the Gandalf cards in this set, is that they're trying to be less useful until you actually have all of his tools on the table in the form of artifacts. Anyway, while you can spot a Gandalf artifact, minions skirmishing bearer gain no strengths or keyword bonuses from shadow cards that they bear. Okay. But then also, while bearer is unwounded or exhausted, bearer is strength +3. So you can get that bit of a strength bonus, but it won't work. So it will work right as he's zipping in to save the day, and then also you kind of get that second wind right there at the very end. But in between, you lose that strength bonus and have to fight with other tools.
Yeah, very nice. I like that. And yeah, I think you do again bring up a good point, just thematically that uh, Gandalf always has a sword. He always has a staff. He fights on horseback with Shadowfax. It's not like they're not meant to be paired together. And so I think that fits really well there. Yeah,
He is missing the kind of standard mount text, which is to make the opponent exert. I believe the other Shadowfax did have that, although I could be misremembering. So bit of a trade off, but yeah. Cool. So on to the next one. Another Isengard card. So this is, I think, half of the Isengard cards in this set here in this batch. So one ill turn deserves another. There's not a whole lot of Isengard stuff to work with in Return of the King. Of course, Isengard's already been completely ruined, and Saruman's pretty much powerless. But we did want to try and give them a few very potent cards. Because Isengard is one culture that I think suffered in the transition from the Two Towers to King block. Naturally, there are hardly any Isengard cards that were introduced, but as the power level increased, they really got left behind. They're quite the mainstay in the original Decipher Fellowship block and in Towers, and so we just wanted to try and give them something to hopefully bridge the gap. So here, condition goes to the support area to play spot 2 Isengard minions or Saruman. Each time your minion is hindered or discarded by a Free People's card, hinder a companion. Each time your condition is hindered or discarded by a Free People's card, hinder a Free People's condition. So just like the title says, tit for tat. You do anything to me, I'm going to do it right back to you, at least in a hindery way. So hopefully make it so that it's a little bit more difficult for your opponent to really build up an advantage against you.
yeah. And I see you've got the 1 dot on here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just because we are introducing 2 and 3 dots doesn't mean that we're doing away with 1 dot, of course. So there will be situations where it definitely is still called for.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. Not much to say there, but
yeah,
I like it.
Okay, now on to one of the stars of this set. I never liked the way that Decipher did Mumax. Mumax are supposed to be these big giant elephants, and we have these big moments in the movies when the Rohirrim are all scrambling trying to counter these enormous beasts. And the best that Decipher came up with was 3 strength and made the bear fierce. And it's kind of like, really, is that all you could come up with? That's 1 strength better than a horse. And it's no, we got to do a little bit better. So there are 3 Mumax in this set. This is one of them, the Blade Tusk Rearguard. And so the Blade Tusk Mumax all follow the same sort of use case, where you first play them as a possession or an artifact in your support area. And then similarly to the Deceived Wizards from War of the Ring block, you do something to activate them and turn them into minions. Unlike the Deceived Wizards, they don't come back. Once they go out onto the field, they're going to get discarded at the end of the turn. I'll just take a look here. So it has a regroup action. Stack a Southron man here. So you've been playing other Southrons, and so as they get to the end of the turn and the Fellowship's going to stop moving or whatever, you're going to take them and start stacking them here on this Mumak. And then you have a maneuver action. Remove 3 Twilight to make this artifact a fierce mounted Southron minion, not a man, but a minion, until the end of this turn that is strength +3 and ambush 1 for each Southron stacked on it. And so you can see the stats there that he starts out with 5 strength and 5 vitality, and then gets bigger and bigger for each Southron that you manage to have put on him. So if you've stacked 4 Southrons on him, then that's 12 plus 5. We're looking at 17 strength and fierce from there. And there's no cap. I've been arguing with designers back and forth, trying to make sure that there's no cap put on this, because I want you to just be able to put 10 Southrons on one guy and just charge him out. And yeah, if you've made your 30 strength Mumak, you've earned it. But but yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a really cool idea. I agree with you. I think Decipher, probably dropped the ball with how they designed the Mumox and really not giving them their glory that they probably could. I mean, you could easily turn it into a giant minion with similar strength of the Balrog or something like that. And I think obviously that's what you're trying to do here, in a really unique way. I like the kind of idea, even in the title, the rear guard and this kind of coming in after a couple turns, when you've gone through a few phases of minions and then powered this thing up for kind of an ambush type attack. So I think this is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I definitely think that the Mumax are one of the highlights of the set. A pretty good chunk of the Raider cards there are built around trying to make this sort of Mumax subculture work. So there's going to be quite a few
Yeah,
cards.
I've always loved the artifact look on cards in various sets. A big fan, especially the foil. The foiling on the artifact
Yeah.
with the gold. So
So
just
this is actually one I think Raiders don't have any artifacts in base Decipher, so this is one that we had to make. And to be
yeah,
honest, the fact that Raider is already yellow kind of makes it kind of a yellow overload, especially on the culture symbol there. But
sure.
all right, so moving on to the next one. So we have our Mumax that are stacking a bunch of guys on possessions. So you want to be able to have some sort of way of countering that as well. I think there's like one existing Free People's card that lets you attack stacked cards, and so this is going to be another one that is added to the toolkit. In this case, given to Rohan. So it's a simple skirmish event. You exert Theoden or Eomer to wound a mounted minion twice, and all the Mumax come mounted, even though they don't really have a mount attached to them. All their text makes them mounted. You may then exert X Rohan minions to discard X stacked shadow cards. So of course, this is really kind of built around take it down, bring down
Yeah.
the Mumak and try to knock a bunch of the Haradrim off of him. But it can also be used in other situations. There's other shadows that stack cards. You have Moria stacking stuff on Goblin Swarms. You have various besiegers getting stacked on sites and things like that. So this could be used as kind of a tool in the toolkit for those kind of situations. But of course, specifically for the Mumax.
And some limited use availability, I guess. Well, I no, not really, because if I mean you have your fellowship's pretty much always on the board. So
Mm-hmm.
but I guess you could have some danger here if your Theoden and Aemir get hindered, you know,
If you lose
not being able
access
to
to
use
them,
this
yeah,
ability. Yeah,
and that can definitely be one of the considerations that you have when you're trying to, especially on things like that one ill turn. Like since you get to pick which companion goes down, of course you can focus on the big hitters rather than the no names that are sitting around the periphery. So
sure. Yeah, but I agree, it does seem to strike a good balance with yeah, the battle and the theme with the Mumok as well.
okay, yeah. Another thing that is going to show up on a few different cards are the Mouth of Sauron, which is one that we've actually got a few different versions of in this set that are all going to be released at the same time. But so this is actually a situation that shows off one of the ways that you might not consider Hinder initially, because initially it's very easy to think that okay, Hinder is purely an offensive thing that I use to benefit myself, but there's other ways to do it. So was he dear to thee? The Mouth of Sauron mocking Aragorn and his entourage. Exert a unique Sauron or Ringwraith minion and hinder the Ring Bearer to make each minion strength +2 until the regroup phase. So most of the time, it would be a very bad thing for the Shadow player to not have access to the Ring Bearer. If the Ring Bearer is hindered, then you can't wound him, you can't add burdens, you can't interact with it. Normally, you want to be killing the ring bearer, but in this case, you can kind of use that to your advantage as kind of a thematic cost here to mock them at the fact that they don't know what Frodo's status is, they don't know what's going on, and so use that to just kind of pump up your field and hopefully use that as a chance to knock down all of his defenders, so that on a future turn you can swoop in and take him.
Yeah, and I imagine that if you have threats in play, hindering certain companions can become very strategic. If someone is killed and then those threats come out on the board, you can't put them on your hindered companion, and so you're limited
Precisely.
with your choices on where those can go.
And that can be a very powerful effect that preventing threats from going on a particular place. There's a version of the Witch King whose only game text is that the ring bearer cannot take threat wounds, and that's a
Yeah,
powerful enough effect that you see that quite a bit. And so this is kind of that a similar in the similar vein, being able to use it for that sort of purpose. Um, there's similar situations where you don't want the ring bearer soaking up archery wounds and things like that. So
right.
yeah, there's quite a few angles. I think quite a few different kinds of decks that might want to fold this into their repertoire.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. So here's another pair of kind of call and response. We talked about the Mumax and taking them down, and so here's a couple of events that are also kind of representing the same scene. So we have No Man May Hinder Me, which kind of funny, especially with the name of the particular mechanic here. But it's a maneuver or skirmish event that restores all your Nazgul. Then you may exert the Witch King twice to hinder all free people's possessions. So, of course, during the fight, he was able to smash through Eowyn's shield, knock the sword out of her hand. All these weapons just cannot hurt him, right? So, but this, of course, has a dual use. You can use it to uh, bring back all your Nazgul that have been hindered by somebody's free people's effect, but then you can also use it for the offensive effect. If you're up against Rohan that's got tons of possessions, you can just blink it, knock them all out for this turn. Let's see how well you stand up without your swords and your shields and your bows and everything else. But then
Yeah, and
we
then
have
you're
sorry, go ahead.
you're sort of sacrificing some of that vitality again,
Mhm.
and potentially giving strength to your Rohirrim companions with the mount abilities and things like that.
Yeah, well, they won't have mounts for this turn at least,
Well,
with
yeah,
those possessions getting hindered, but
that's
uh,
true.
maybe on a double though. However, then you have the flip side here. I am no man. The response to "No man may hinder me." Exert a skirmishing valiant companion twice, or spot Eowyn in a skirmish to make a minion strength -1 for each hindered card you can spot. And of course, this is kind of specifically designed around, well, okay, if you have used this one and hindered all of my possessions, you are about to have a very bad time. However, there's plenty of other situations where this can also come in handy. There are various fellowship cards that are going to be hindering themselves for a cost. And so you can kind of build up that to use offensively in this case. And there's plenty of other shadow cards that are going to swoop in and try to hinder as many things as they can. And so in each of those situations, this can be used to turn that into a skirmish win for you in an important circumstance.
Yeah, very
So
very cool. I think great imagery on these cards, with Eowyn there and the counterbalance. I definitely really like the theme and the callback to these scenes here. It's very cool.
this is actually an interesting shot of Eowyn here. This is not from the films as we have it. Um, they originally filmed a version of Eowyn versus the Witch King using a much older design for the helmet and everything. And the way that it looked, I guess what had kind of decided that it sort of looked like Sauron's helmet, and they were like, we don't want people getting confused that aren't following along." So they redesigned the helmet and then had to reshoot everything. And so this particular shot is actually from that initial shooting, and so not one of the ones that we got in the film. We have a very large repository of images that we've gathered over time, kind of to do the same sort of thing that Decipher did, right? Because they had access
Yeah.
to lots of things that never made it to the film. So it always makes me excited when there's a card that just perfectly fits one of the images that we happen to have. Mm.
Yeah, I remember watching some of the behind the scenes footage where they talk about that as well, with the wanting to make sure that fans and casual viewers maybe could differentiate that this is a different character. This isn't
Yeah.
some Sauron or Sauron light with too similar design there.
And it can sound silly 20 years later, but I can understand, we're talking about the first time that you're ever seeing it. You don't want to get confused. It's already confusing enough when you have Saruman and Sauron. I know that that's something that a
Yeah,
lot of people trip on when they're first
yeah.
encountering Lord of the Rings for the first time.
Which towers are they talking about
Yeah,
with the two towers?
exactly. Don't want to add to that. And then the sites. So I mentioned this in other videos and other places, but I feel like it's a little bit of a travesty that the Decipher never gave us a Mount Doom in King block for us to throw the ring into. And so one of the things that we are doing is correcting this injustice. So we have a series of Site 8s and Site 9s that are based entirely around Mount Doom. And so, yeah, we're going to look at those here. So just a couple. We have 1/8 and 1/9 for the King block path. So first one here is Desolation of Ash. At the start of each phase, the shadow player may remove one to take a shadow event into hand from the discard pile. So there's a great many events out there that are very difficult to use to have them, at just the right time to where you might want to use them. And so this sort of thing lets you chuck them all into the discard pile earlier in the game, and then maybe you get to this point where we're finally here near the end. Now you can pull out exactly the event that you need at exactly the right time, and Bob's your uncle. So
Yeah, very nice.
And then Oro Druin, one of the names for Mount Doom. So this is a mountain, a battleground. Each time a threat is added, the Free People's player must assign all threat wounds. And so we've made it here to the end. There's plenty of games where you get all those threats on the table, but you're just not quite able to get anybody knocked off, and so they're just sitting there mocking you in the face. If you are playing a threat deck, this might be what you need to really pop off your last hurrah. Get all those threats as many times as you can add threats. You can get them applied directly to companions.
Yeah, I can see how this could definitely be a strong finish to a lot of games. The mountain and battleground keywords, are going to come into play a lot with certain decks. Again with Isengard, with even with dwarves, yeah, with Easterlings, you got a lot of play there with a lot of different cultures. And again, great shot there
Yeah,
of Mount Doom.
there were some good Mount Doom shots. Like it was almost professionally offensive that none of them got used in some of these capacities. So I'm very happy to
Yeah, we
see them.
we got a pretty cool one with the Hunter set, with the
Yeah,
Mount Doom, and our only rare foil site uh with uh with the later blocks. But
definitely one of those situations where I think it was a very powerful mechanical card, but from a thematic perspective, you had to sit down and think, what the heck does this have to do with Mount Doom? Which I think was kind of a common failing of Decipher's later on was it became more of a mechanical game that was about interesting interlocking effects between cards, but not so much it being Lord of the Rings,
right.
So
Yeah,
that's
I th
something
I
that
think it's
go
yeah, I
ahead.
think it's really fun to again go back into these older blocks and get to focus more on the real theme of the story in the films. And like you said, not just focused on a new different mechanic, but make it make sense for these characters, for the Mumox, for this fight between Gandalf and the Witch King, or the Nazgul and the Rohirrim. Yeah, I think, as a huge fan of both the books, the movies, the game, it's really fun to get to look at these types of things, and again, just relive some of these moments, as you're enjoying the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So we're going to be releasing this mid-December, probably around December 15th. It will be released immediately onto GEMP. It'll be available for everyone to play. We will have our normal Yuletide leagues where people will be able to jump in and start playtesting it. It's not going to be locked in completely until January, February, because I'm sure after 500 people start looking at it, we're going to discover all kinds of small imbalances or something that need to get addressed. So we're not. This will officially be a public playtest that we are going to enter into. But at the same time, we will also have it available in the VKit tool. So if anybody that plays in paper would really like to print them out, we have a tool on the PC website called VKit. We stole it from the Star Wars PC that is able to take cards and put them into the various printing formats for you to very easily print out and cut out and use in paper form if that's more your boat. So yeah, we're excited to release
Yeah.
this to everybody. And yeah,
And will there be like an album for viewing the cards,
Mhm.
like the full set on GEMP?
Yes, yeah. So GAMP in the deck builder, you can always filter down to a particular set, and so this will be no different. You'll be able to just go in and change the filter to set V3 and look through there. However, besides these videos, we are also going to be releasing a series of spoiler blog posts in the run up to the release, and that will end up spoiling every single card. Every blog post will have 5 to 10 cards in it, and so we'll make sure that that's all there, and then there will be albums as well that we can link to people, so that if they just want to browse through all the offerings, the wiki, it'll be on the wiki for sure. And
Okay,
then
yeah,
that
perfect.
yeah, that's got tools for browsing and inspecting. So
Yeah, so several ways to check out the cards there. So awesome.
yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting us show off some of the stuff we've been working on.
Yeah, it's great to be together with you guys on this and with some other creators and getting to view this set. So yeah, thank you everybody for watching and getting to preview with me. Um, please subscribe and like if you want to. I'm 18 subscriptions away from 100. So, and we got a cool box opening of the expanded Middle Earth. We're going to be cracking all three of those open on my channel. So if you want to see that, would appreciate a subscribe. Um, yeah, and I think that's all we got for you today.
All right, bye.
See you later.